Recording. All right. So welcome everybody. Glad to see a great crowd for the presentation tonight. We're going to go through, I've got probably 15 or 20 minutes to talk about the 10-meter contest, and then we'll open it up a little bit and we'll talk more generally about about the contest, and we can talk about the contest dinner if you like, or almost anything. So thanks. I see WC4E just joined. This presentation is adapted from an article that was written originally by Jeff way back in the probably late 90s, mid 90s, something like that. So thanks to Jeff for the raw material to put this together. So this is, I'm going to try to hit some, highlights and talk about some strategies and things to watch out for. If you have questions or you want to interject, I'm happy to field it, as long as we can't all talk at once, but we'll piece it together. You can raise your hand, and if I see it, I'll call on you, or you can just call out. So here we go. So the 10-meter contest, most of you are probably, at least conversant in it. Because of where we are in the United States, in the southeast corner, we have a pretty big advantage in this contest. It's a really significant advantage in low sunspot years, but it's still in high sunspot years. We have, two more coming in. Sorry. Is in high sunspot years, we do have continue to have a big advantage, mostly in sporadic E. So up, and my notes say this article was originally written in 1996. So thanks to 1996, Jeff, for putting a lot of this material together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to leverage our geography as best you can for, an advantage. And then we'll talk about some strategies and some equipment and that sort of thing as well. So where are we at in the 10-meter sort of state of play? This is a graph of the projected sunspot cycle. So you can see it always ramps up more quickly than it ramps down. But, we're at this, we're, I think, pretty close to the peak of the sunspot cycle. As I was putting this presentation together last month, the SFI had hit as high as 270. That's about as good as it gets. If the A and K indices are low, you're going to have a really good time. There's going to be a lot of activity on 10. You're going to work a bunch of people, paths that are unusual. Paths that rely on high sunspots are going to be open. So that zone 26 QSO that you've been needing for your 5-band worked all zones, that's going to be achievable this year in a way that it might not be achievable, in lower sunspot years. So, these graphs, AJ pulled these together, so you can see the estimated flux is anywhere, from 200. 150 to 200. That's sort of a magic number for to make 10 meters open up wide and stay open. So how's the contest? The way that Jeff broke this out was sort of hour by hour, segment by segment. So the contest starts Friday night local. 0 Zulu, 7 o'clock. What are you working at 7 o'clock? You're beaming northwest to work JA. You're beaming southwest to work VKZL. Typically what you'll find is conditions about an hour ago were just really, really good. And you were hearing a bunch of, maybe you're still hearing some Southern Europe. You're hearing a bunch of stateside guys. As the last pre-contest hour dies out, a lot of that goes away, and you think, oh man, we're going to have a crummy time. You can hear a lot of the Caribbean guys, so there'll be any expeditions to the Caribbean. This is a good time to work them because they're going to be relatively louder in darkness than they will be, or I should say in twilight than they will be in daylight. You want to listen out for sporadic E. We've talked about in other contexts sporadic E, and I'll address it later in the presentation. But the conventional wisdom is on Friday night, don't stay up too late. Don't stay up beating your head against the wall. You want to get to bed because real action starts Saturday morning. Saturday morning, 11 Zulu, 6 a.m. approximately. It's a single man contest and you really don't want a chance missing something. So the trick is go ahead and get up, get in front of the radio. 11 Zulu is a good target. The band, you'll hear Southwestern Europe, you'll hear Mediterranean stuff, EAs, CTs, I's, S5s, that sort of thing. If somebody's on from 9A, 1A, you'll hear them. It's not a lot of volume, and it's really only the guys with big antennas in Europe that you're hearing at this hour. It's not really the attraction, although, of course, work them if you can. The real attraction to this hour is Africa. If there's anybody on from Zone 37, Zone 38, there's going to be, I think, a group on from 7 Quebec, or at least somebody on from 7 Quebec. If 05Z4VJ gets back home from Worldwide, he might be on. This is a good time to pick up those guys before the band opens to Europe. Call some CQs, turn the beam east. As you go further on in this hour, about 1200 Zulu, that's when things really pick up to Europe. You should be turning the beam northeast and leaving it and calling CQ and working guys, and you'll have big rates and loud signals. If Worldwide CW is any indication, it opened on Saturday morning anyway. 10 meters went from sort of not very good to wide open in the space of just a few minutes. So I expect that something similar will happen here. You'll go from, I can sort of hear, there's a little bit of volume there to, man, it's wide open and you feel like you're working everybody. In this window, starting about 1330 Zulu to maybe 1400 or 1415, that's when the long path opens to Asia. So this is not as critical in the high sunspot years because you can work most of those multipliers direct path in the afternoon. But in lower sunspot years, this is when you would beam long path and work a BY, work an HS, something like that. It can be fun because they're probably going to be on. It can be fun to turn your beam that way if you have a beam and call CQ, on that heading in that hour, even though Europe is really rolling at this point, just to try to stir up a little bit of, a few easy multipliers. And you can, oftentimes like 9V1YC, who's pretty active, he usually finds that opening. But the real action in this window, again, starting about 1200 Zulu, is Europe. 1400 to 1800, Europe and South America. You're going to want to milk Europe as long as you can because there's so many multipliers there and you want to work them as much as you can. I've done this contest a couple of times pretty seriously, and there's always one or two multipliers where you think, oh man, was there an EA9 on? And you say, well, yeah, he was on for 2 hours only on Saturday. And if you didn't work him in that 2 hours, then you missed him. So you got to pay attention to that sort of thing because it's, that can be the difference in a close race. As this window continues, you're going to start to hear more and more North American stations. which is totally fine. They're exactly the same in terms of points. And of course, you need the state multipliers. Look for South America. There's, a lot of South American activity here in this contest. Everybody always talks about, and I'd be curious if anybody has any real experience with, when I recall when I got into contesting was around the peak 2 cycles ago in 2000, and everybody talked about got to work the LU and the PY novices, and they had, everybody would post where the PY novice band and the LU novice band was, and they were up above 2,900 or something. And now you got to go up there and call CQ and you'll work all these LUs and PYs. I don't know if that's really a thing anymore, but it only takes a few minutes to research that sort of thing. If you're going to be on phone, and you can sort of fake your call sign in Spanish and an exchange in Spanish, you can really turn up there's a lot of South America and a lot of LUs, a lot of PYs, a lot of other rarer stuff too. If you can, you might be able to convince them to get on. So 1800 to 2300. So now you've sort of worked out Europe. The only Europe that you're hearing now is really extreme Western Europe, EA, CT, maybe, loud stations, big stations in the British Isles, something like that. JAs start to get louder, so you'll start to work more JAs. Look for those Asian direct path, Asian multipliers, HL, YB, XB, that sort of thing. It's possible at the top of the cycle to be running and working Europeans and North America and JA, Oceania at the same time, off the same, off the same antenna on 10 meters at this time of the day. So, this is a really good time. Again, your zone 23, your zone 24, even though zones don't count as multipliers, this is a time to work those stations as well, on the direct path and take advantage of the good propagation. So 2300 to 0500 or so, you start this window of the contest. There's a ton of North American activity still. Your, stateside guys, KL7, KH6, they're still on. Again, you want to look for your VK, your ZLs. JA is still workable here. By about 0300, particularly as you go further north, because it gets darker earlier, further north in North America, those guys are done. They're, they've been operating all day. They're not hearing anything new. They're saying, oh, geez, it's another guy in Florida. They're not. So they're starting to pack it up. This is when, if we're going to get sporadic E, this is sort of the window when the sporadic E is going to happen. And I think the next slide, yeah, that's perfect. Good timing. So sporadic E, and let me make this clear. I'm not at all any kind of physicist or propagation expert, but, I can, with NK4O's help, we put together this slide. So this is sort of an illustration. So this left-hand diagram is the layers of the ionosphere. So you've got the D layer closest to the ground, then the E layer, then the F layer. F layer propagation is what you get during the day, typically. So that's what, and if you're on 6 meters, that's what you're hoping for, is not sporadic E, which is generally shorter range and sort of, that sporadic E. If you get sporadic E on 6, you're working like Texas, or you're working, somewhere relatively close by, single hop sporadic E. What you're hoping for on 6 is F layer propagation. So what you see is the angle. This is starting at the left. This is the signal leaving your antenna, and it hits the F layer and it reflects down. And the key element there is it reflects down and it hits the earth further away. So you get more distance. Sporadic E propagation, when the E layer supports it, you get the same phenomenon, the same type of propagation. It's just, it bounces off lower in the ionosphere, and you get typically propagation, shorter distance propagation. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I like to work people no matter where they are. So sporadic E is sporadic. It's in the name. So you don't know when it's going to happen. It's hard to predict. But in Florida, because of where we are geographically, we stand as good a chance as anybody and better than most of being on this end of the sporadic E. So if you're, the characteristics of a sporadic E opening are signals are really loud, band noise, the background noise is typically low because it's oftentimes at night. And so there's relatively little atmospheric noise on 10. Signals are really loud. It's fairly concentrated geographic area. So you'll work, a bunch of guys in Arizona, and you'll say, man, I just worked, 25 guys in Arizona in a half an hour. And then, maybe it moves around a little bit. And then, now we're moving into West Texas and we're starting to work guys in Texas. And then, now it's inching into Oklahoma. It's a defined geographic area. Signals are really loud. The real trick is, and Jeff put this in his notes, which is true. I've had it, I've been on both ends of this. Nobody else is working any volume. Nobody else in the States, the Northeast, the West Coast, nobody else has got any volume of QSOs. They're having to search and pounce, or they're calling CQ, and it's sort of slow. And in Florida, if you've got sporadic E to a highly populated, a densely populated area, you're working guys for this time of the contest at a really high rate. And, people think you're just maybe reading the call book. It's just really a lot of fun. So the trick with that is you got to stick with it. You got to stay up. You got to keep going after the after the contest. It seems like, it's not as much fun, or, the rates are dying down. You got to stick with it, because this is when we in Florida can do really well. But that's the differentiator. Sporadic E doesn't really go along with sunspot cycles. So sporadic E happens when the sunspots are low, and it happens when the sunspots are high. It's sporadic. Some people say it happens a little more when the sunspots are not very good, but I don't know that the numbers really support that. And then this other, I guess, worth mentioning here, you can get what's called double hop, which is my understanding. You get single hop to sort of a close by area, and then you get an attenuated reflection again, and it can bounce off the E layer again, and you can get double hop sporadic E. So that implies that as well. So the 6 meter guys who are 6 meter fanatics will know all about that. So then for Sunday, what do we do on Sunday? On Saturday, we killed ourselves and we did really well. What do we do on Sunday? Well, part of the trick is on Saturday, you got to run like there's no tomorrow, because if the A and K index spikes on Sunday, it's really going to slow down. It can go from really, really good to really, really bad. The openings and everything, the propagation is broadly speaking the same. If conditions are good, the last few hours of the contest, you'll be running stateside and JA and Asia, and you'll have the hope is to have a big pile up when you finish the contest, and you leave a few people wanting more and they come back quicker. Worth calling out, if the A and K rise sort of a little bit, then we can, it may be that Florida continues to make QSOs, and guys in, Illinois or Ohio or something like that are going to struggle a little more. So certainly worth calling out. And then these are just some sort of general tips and tricks. All of this stuff comes from the rules. It's not, anything magic. But CWQs are worth twice what sideband QSOs are. So if you're mixed mode, you got to work sideband because there's separate sideband multipliers. But you want to pick the times when the rates are high. All QSOs, no matter where they originate from, are equal in points. So, stateside is the same points as a JT or a BY. And check the multipliers. This is, I talk about this a fair amount, and I think this is one of those things that as you get more aware and plugged in on contesting, this is the sort of thing where more sophisticated contesters sort of know this intuitively. There's going to be multipliers. I mentioned that EA9 a couple of years ago that are only on part-time, and they're not really making a big effort, but they're the only station on from that multiplier. And ZD7BG is the classic example of that. He's a willing contester, but he's not really super adept. He's not, he doesn't want to, he generates a huge pileup every time he gets on, which I don't think is his bag. He doesn't really particularly enjoy it. So he moves around a lot, and he's only on for a few hours. So somebody like that, if they get on, you want to make a priority. If you see them spotted or you tune across them, you want to make it a priority to work them, because they may only make a couple hundred or a few hundred QSOs. And if you don't work them, then you're not going to work that multiplier. One of the tricks that I do and that I think is helpful is to check the ARRL posts a list of DXpeditions, and Daily DX has one if you subscribe to that, or there's one, there used to be a website, I think NG3K has a website that he posts contest expeditions. Take a look at that list. You're not so much interested in the contest, the expeditions that are going to be on for the whole contest full time, both modes, with big antennas. I mean, the assumption is you're going to work those guys. What you want to pay attention to are multipliers that you see that are not on that list. So, again, EA9 or ZD7, those are a multiplier, and you got to work them if you can. But so in any case, I think that's a sort of advanced or semi-advanced contesting trick that people might overlook. These are really advanced tips and tricks. This is a great contest if you can do it, to try SO2V, single op 2 VFO. Particularly on Sunday, rates are not super fast, so you can, you can afford to spend a little time tuning on the second VFO. If you're low power and you have sufficient antenna separation, which this is again not the case for everybody, but maybe for a handful of people, there's nothing wrong with SO2R in this contest. That's a nobody, I think K4OJ used to say, nobody ever got any points for listening to their own side tone. So if you have the antenna separation and the intestinal fortitude to hook up a second transceiver on the same band, you can switch, have one on sideband and one on CW, or you can, keep them both on the same mode and do that. Or again, SO2V is also very legitimate and very helpful. And then this is a fancy way of saying, and I think I understand this graph correctly. This is a fancy way of saying that it's not always the guy with the biggest antenna who's gonna dominate the band. At the top of the cycle, the guy who rules 10 meters has a big antenna, one wavelength high, and one wavelength on 10 meters is 35 feet, 39 feet, something like that. So this is the contest where the guy with 6 elements at 100 feet is going to be waiting in line behind the guy with an A3 at 40 feet. because the 100-foot beam, except at the beginning, the end of the opening, is probably too high. So this is and again, I'm going to act like I understand this graph 100%, but this purple line with the triangles, that's a 35-foot high Yagi. And the left-hand axis is the percent of the openings where that's going to be good, or where that's going to be usable. And then this is the gain. And this is going to peak, that 35-foot high Yagi is almost the best antenna on the band. So the gain figure, it's almost as high as everything. But you see how short, or how sometimes this 120-foot antenna is just way down. That's because, again, it's too high. So if you have access to more than one Yagi, air toward the lower Yagi. If you have a crank up tower, you don't have to crank it all the way up to operate this contest. You can do really well with a Yagi at 35, 40 feet. You're not going to work probably long path Asia as well, but the bulk of the QSOs, North America, South America, Europe, those QSOs you're going to be better off for those. It's very possible to win this contest with a pretty modest station, and Jeff gave a couple examples in the presentation. He's won this contest with an A3 and a 500-watt amp. He's won mixed mode in this contest with an A3 at 50 feet and a 500-watt amp. K1TO, not maybe a fair comparison because he's a, exceptionally good operator, but, he's dominated this contest before with, an A4 at 50 feet and, so a very simple station. N4BP is another one who, Bob has a tri-bander at 70 feet, and, he's, he always does really well in this contest because that's a sweet spot. That's a really good, that's a really good height and a really dominant, to have a really dominant signal for a lot of the time. So, but that just exhausted my ability to read this graph, which is pretty minimal. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go back to the gallery. And then we'll open it up and, you guys can raise your hand, or you can just chime in and we'll talk a little bit about this, or if you have questions about something else, and then I'll talk about the contest dinner, and then we'll probably break it up about 8 o'clock. So.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, a couple of things I noticed this past weekend, or in Worldwide Code, were top of the sunspot cycle. So it'll be a little harder for Florida to really dominate in the contest, I feel. Usually tops and very tippy top, and the bottoms are the hardest. It's the slopes of the cycle which Florida gets the best propagation. And a couple propagation notes that I found out, since I only got like 4 elements at 40 feet, I don't have the super stacks anymore. But I noticed the VKZLs were coming in at long path and like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon over Europe. So that was notable because I'd switch around and it would always be louder over Europe. And there'll be less multipliers in worldwide. So I guess find them where you can. Don't worry about the multipliers at the start because there are 1 million people get on the pileups immediately. And the pileups are huge, especially if you're low power. You got to say that's too many people calling. I'll try again. So I'll just make a note of it and go back. Because being low power, it's humbling, being high power for so many years. So those are a couple of notes. If I think more, I'll think. Hello to Jeff. N5TJ is here. That's good to see him as well.
Yeah, outstanding. Yeah, NP2X said don't forget about long path to Asia. So he he may have joined a little bit later, but yeah, 1330, 1400 Zulu is your long path. And it's hard because at that time, like I say, we're running Europe like crazy, and you say, oh, I don't want to take away from my European run, but even 5 or 10 minutes. I've been told, I've never operated from Asia, but I've been told by guys who've operated there from there for a long time that opening on the high bands on 10, 15, and 20, that long path opening, Florida is always the loudest. Florida stations are always the loudest in Asia on that opening from the States. So, W1s and W2s and, even W5s, they're not as loud as we are. We have the big advantage. So even if you take 5 or 10 minutes and you just turn the antenna and you're still calling CQ, but now you're beaming long path Asia instead of beaming to Europe, you're still going to work Europe because it's the top of the cycle and you can still work Europeans, but you're going to be one of the louder signals on the band in Asia at that time, and you might stir up an unusual multiplier. Although again, this is a little bit different than worldwide because China's a big country. It's only one multiplier. So, you don't have to worry about working zone 23 and 24. You don't have to worry about splitting the two Australian zones, all of that stuff, but still worth doing. Yeah, Fred's spitting a lot of wisdom here. It's always helpful just generally to have an idea of what your final score is going to look like. And you're not so worried about the final score, like the number at the bottom of the score summary, but you want to know what's a multiplier worth. Is a multiplier worth 2 QSOs or 8 QSOs? And you can sort of get an idea of that by looking at a historical log, download a copy of, or look at a log where you've generated in the past where you thought you did pretty well, and just open it up in your software and look at it and say, because the software all does this calculation for you, and it'll say, 1 QSO is worth, one multiplier is worth 2.5 QSOs, or one multiplier is worth 8 or 9 QSOs. Then what you're going to do is use that to inform yourself about how long you wait in a pileup and how, is it worth leaving my run frequency and potentially losing it to go work this multiplier, later in the contest, because you might go and work them and you say, man, that probably cost me 5 or 6 QSOs. But if a multiplier is worth 8 QSOs in the end, then you've come out ahead, and you find a new CQ frequency if you have to, and you go back to CQing. But to do that, you've got to have an idea of how many QSOs a multiplier is worth. And to do that, you've got to look at a log. And if you need a log, if you don't have one in your category or from your particular location or your area, ask around, send an email to the reflector. We can, somebody will come up with a log. There's no state secrets in there. We can share those. I'm happy to share anything that I've got, which is going to be tilted towards CW, but I'll definitely share it if you need it.
You can always get any public log on here in the ARRL website.
Yeah. The public logs are available, but then you gotta force it into the software or do the calculation yourself, which is, either one is doable. But yeah, go ahead. Lee was opening his mouth. What's up?
This is a contest where it's really an advantage to have more than one antenna.
Yeah.
From the Tampa Club, for instance, we've got 3 Bs that all work on 10 meters. Actually, during CQ Worldwide, I took our third beam, which is a XR5, and just pointed it at the Caribbean and South America, so I could quickly, if I saw a new multiplier, could turn around and work one of them with 100 watts off that beam and then keep the two C31s pointed where I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
A vertical would make a difference because we're at the top end of the cycle.
Yeah, even a simple second antenna or third antenna can be helpful. And sometimes those Caribbean stations that are too close, when the band is wide open, you're never going to hear a Charlie Oscar or, an HI or something from Florida. It's just really going to be they're just going to skip right over you. So, sort of on the edges of the opening, either when it's just getting dark or when it's just the band is just trying to open, a lot of times are when you hear them. And sometimes they're louder on a low antenna. And, sometimes if all you can put up is a dipole, a low dipole beaming, facing north and south to go with your tri-bander, that may be enough to get you one or two multipliers, and it costs you, a couple of bucks of wire and some old coax. But yeah, this contest definitely rewards that kind of flexibility.
Yeah, those close in multipliers, Charlie Oscar, ZF, and multipliers there, the northern part of Caribbean. I always worked them off the back of the beam or a skew path, wherever they were beaming, I beamed, and that always worked out best. And like you said, it was towards the end of the day when they don't have as many people calling to hear a low power signal, so
Yeah.
that always worked out better. So just keep trying, but if you hear it, if you see a Charlie Mike, if you're assisted, if you hear them or see them spotted, try them the opposite direction. That might work out better.
Yeah. If you think they're working Europe, then like you say, you beam Europe, and sometimes that'll bring them up and make them audible. The other thing, if in the afternoon, let's see, no, is that right? No, I don't know. I totally lost it. There was something about skew path, but it's more of a summertime thing when 10 is sort of open in the summertime, but as I'm remembering that now, it's a skew path thing. It's a summertime propagation for the IRU. That's what it was. Sorry about that. Let's see. Fred is also U.S. technicians are on. So technician class licenses, no code techs in the States have sideband privileges on 10. And I think that's the only HF band where they have sideband privileges. And it's only from 28.3 to 28.5. So it's not so critical in the mornings, because if you're going to be working Europe, and it's, they're fine. And I expect to see the band is going to be packed. I mean, guys are going to be in, up to a 2900 or above, 29.00 or above. But in the afternoons when the band's open to North America, that's really the sweet spot. If you can squeeze in to somewhere between 28.3 and 28.5 to work the technicians. I gotta think, I've been burned by this before, but I gotta think that all these technicians who are interested in HF are gonna make the effort. If they're ever gonna make the effort, it's gonna be the top of the cycle when they can get on and actually work some guys. And so you want to be around for them to work them, and you got to perfect that sort of that air of confidence. And you want to be John Wooden, who's a basketball coach for UCLA, he used to say, be quick but don't hurry. You want to be fast, you want to be you want to have a sense of urgency, but you don't want to seem like you're angry, or you're blowing them off, or you're mad at them if they don't know the exchange or something like that. So that's kind of the line to walk. But particularly on Sunday, you're gonna be trying to bring them in and trying to lure in anybody that you can on sideband. So Fred's got the DX maps. Again, the 6 meter guys are well aware of all this stuff. This is just sort of taking 6 meter propagation and shifting it to 10 meters for the weekend. And so the 6 meter grid hunters have a big advantage in this contest, even though there's no Acton on FT8, because they're used to the propagation and they're conversant with all the tools. So I expect big scores out of the 6 meter DXers in the club. And N5TJ, who's not in the club but is on the call. Welcome, Jeff, by the way. who's hunting for hunting his FFMA and down to just a handful of grids, I think, or maybe just one. I think that exhausts it, or more or less, the 10-meter contest. So I'm going to pivot real quick to the contest dinner. Sent some emails around earlier today. We've opened up the ticket sales, so those are live. You can go and buy a ticket. You can check your email, or I'll post the link in the chat just in case. Sorry, I can't talk and type at the same time, or I'll type the wrong thing. There we go. You could buy your tickets. We just got word tonight, thanks to mostly to AJ for his hard work. But we just got word tonight that we've got another year of sponsorship by ICOM and DX Engineering. So the grand prize for the dinner will again be an ICOM 7610. So if you're in the market, or you'd like to be in the market, this is the most affordable way to get a new ICOM 7610 is to come to the dinner, buy a ticket, and have it be drawn as the winner. We're selling extra raffle tickets like we always do, so you can buy an extra chance in the raffle for $10. Those you can pre-purchase as well. So at the website, the link that I sent around. The band is packed. Yes, sorry, I'm keeping up with the chat as well. Yep, Fred says the sideband portion is going to be packed above 29.0. But certainly for the afternoon, for the afternoon North American openings, that 28.3 to 28.5 window is going to be a fruitful hunting ground for technicians as well. So anyway, big announcement. I hadn't publicized that yet. We're still getting some graphics and everything to put on the website, but that is all set and confirmed. So hope to see everybody in Orlando in February. All right, so that took care of that, and I don't have anything else on the agenda, so I may give you back a few minutes. Anybody else? Oh, questions from KNMR? Yes, sir.
Another Orlando question. Are we going to have a club swap table inside the building?
Yes, let me reach out and talk to the Hamfest folks, but yes, that is the plan.
Good.
Let me get that reconfirmed as well. But that is on the agenda.
Yeah, I have something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sometimes when 10 meters is just starting to open for the day, what I'll do is I'll search beacons and see what areas, which areas opening up.
Yep, definitely an old school way to do it. And we used to, I say everybody, that used to be sort of the propagation tool of choice, was, tune the beacon band and, work these or listen to these little 5-watt and 1-watt beacons. Still 100, super useful. I mean, the beacons are all published. The beacon frequencies on 10 are all published. They're all in a specific band segment, which I don't recall off the top of my head, but it's easily findable.
28.2.
Yeah, so you can tune around that segment and ID these beacons, and 28.2 to 28.3. Listen to these beacons and copy them, and that'll help you know where the band is open. Most of the beacons are running low power, certainly no more than 100 watts. And a lot of them are running, 5 watts or 10 watts. So if the band is open and you're copying a beacon in ZS and you're copying a beacon in, somewhere else sort of far away, that's a good indication that the band is in really good shape. And of course, you can call CQ on CW, and watch for your call in the reverse beacon network, and you'll be able to tell where you're decoded as well. So that is also very helpful. But fingers crossed, the conditions have been really good. Conditions in worldwide code were just exceptional. I think that we're going to have a lot of fun in the 10-meter contest. So I'm really looking forward to it. Fred says, don't forget about the NP2X beacon. He'll be happy to give you an exchange. So don't forget to call him. Yeah, but yeah, it's we'll do the this is our big effort. The club, this contest and the FQP, we make a concerted effort to get on and make it possible for everybody to get on and have a good time, because those two contests play best to our particular geography, and we can do really well. So we want everybody to get on. If operate as much or as little as you like, operate the modes that you like. We certainly don't want to, there's no shame if you want to do only CW or only sideband, no no problem whatsoever. But this contest at the top of the cycle is really going to be something special. I expect there'll be some big numbers. There'll be a lot of QSOs, and it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to go to that's right, be the band, be a beacon. I'm going to go to Tampa. N4WW is hosting N4KM for the contest. Kevin beat me to the request, so I'm going to go to Tampa to the TARC club station, and I'm going to do a mini NX4N. I'm going to take my own amp and my own rig and computer and that other stuff and set it up and use their antennas. And I'm expecting to make a lot of QSOs and have a good time. So I'll see you guys. I'll see everybody on the band. Is it all guys? It's all guys tonight. I'll see you guys on the band. Hopefully, and look for NP2X and look for HI3 radio. And you don't forget to work Florida. I don't think it'll be a problem, but Florida's a mult just like everybody else. So we'll see everybody on. See some of you on for 160 tomorrow night, and we'll see everybody on for the 10-meter contest next weekend. Thanks a bunch. And I'll post this recording. I'll post a link to this recording sometime later tonight if you missed it, or if you have somebody who wants to view it.
And if we work each other, let's just give out an OJ.
Yep, definitely. You can, keep the OJs going. This was a big deal. This was a big contest, a favorite contest for K4OJ, who founded the club. He was always made a big effort in this contest, so it's nice to keep that memory alive and keep the club spirit high and exchange an OJ when you work another FCG. So thanks.
One more follow-up question on what
Yes,
Jim was asking. In terms of hamcation, if we have a table, like how does it work in terms of, let's say, getting your stuff, the stuff you want to sell ahead of time into the building? Can you drive up there and all those things? I've accumulated so many things I like to get rid of. So I'd like to participate in that table situation as well.
What we've done in the past is the club buys a swap table, and then it's hard to share that too widely because you only get a certain number of the early or the vendor tickets. I think you get 2 or 4 vendor tickets. But certainly as soon as the Hamfest opens, you can bring your stuff by, and we'll try to work something out if you have an unusually large amount of stuff to bring it by early. But I deputized Kate MR to sort of run that. So
okay. Hopefully I'll be able to do that. I may have a good buddy from Cleveland coming down to come to Hamcation, Jim W8WTS, who
oh good.
His wife had passed away like May of 2023, and he'd been quite lonely. Prior to the Ham, or 22, I guess. Anyway, Prior to Dayton last year, we invited him out to dinner to rendezvous with us to to drop off some junk for me to haul down to Dayton. And we just happened to have well, not young lady, but a very nice female friend with us who invited Jim in for dinner. And the rest, they say, is history. They're now good time boy, girlfriends, whatever, if that's the appropriate age description. But she rents a place down here in our same condo complex. And I think Jim will be down a few times. And I've told him to come to Hamcation. I'll take him up there. Basically, when I did a couple years ago, on Thursday, you can get in. There's some passes, whatever, but it'd be involved coordinating with people with the booth. But you can't drive up close to the building to drop heavy stuff off. I think there may be a limited time Friday morning before it actually opens. You can likewise do the same. And of course, you can carry in anything you want to carry in at any time during the event. And although we typically will not be doing anything on Sunday, so if you want to come in and come to a table on Sunday, no one's going to be there to stop you.
Okay, thanks for the info.
Of course.
More information as the time approaches.
Yep. Details to come for sure. But I will contact the Hamfest folks tonight and make sure that is all set, because I told them I wanted the table. It's been a couple of months ago, so just got to remind them, because I don't think I've heard anything back. Very good. Thanks so much for everybody's involvement and feedback. I'm going to take that as just an A+++, Eric. That's how I'm going to read that. So thanks a bunch. You guys have a good one. We'll post the recording. Again, I'll post the recording tonight. A link to the recording. Thanks a bunch. 73.
Thank you. Good night.
OJ.
Cool,
OJ,
thanks.
thanks.
73.
It did.